I believe from the very moment it was announced, it is one of the most overhyped vehicles in the history of the automobile industry.
You think it's going to be an Etzel, don't you?
I would not be surprised. And you guys should rest comfortably because, as you both know, all my predictions are wrong. But just in case this is my one prediction that's right, I think it will be an initial success, and that success will be short lived. Because you think there's 1.5 million people who said, yeah, I want one. Okay. And that number is going to dwindle quickly. And then interest in it's going to wane. And would that be Lil Wayne? I'm sorry.
Or is that a big Wayne? You
Yeah,
think interest is going
it's
to big
Lil,
Wayne?
I think it's Lil Wayne. And I just think the damn thing's going to sit. Honestly, that's what I believe is going to happen.
I
And
feel the same. I feel the same way.
don't take this wrong when I say it, but I think Tesla lovers out there are just blinded by how they've bought into the Tesla brand. Okay. And eventually you're going to open your eyes and you're going to go, that is the ugliest damn vehicle anybody has ever produced on a mass level.
I disagree.
They can't even put on a mass level yet.
I,
And they won't produce
Looks
it
are
on a
very
mass level.
subjective, right?
yes.
Of course it is. Yeah. No, everything. Beauty's always subjective.
I will just say this. Tesla people have bought into the hype and they're crazy, and Toyota people are loyalists for some reason who know a good quality product. I've always found that dichotomy to be interesting, that
Well,
we call
because one
Tesla
is a high
fanboys
quality
and
product and the other is not.
Based
I
on
would
what
disagree.
data point?
Based on the one I drove, listen, you said it in the beginning of the show. They have been known for fit and finish issues since the beginning of time. And has it improved? Yes, it has. Is the quality of a Tesla build the same as some manufacturers that have been around for 70, 80, 100 years? Probably not. I'm not saying they can't get there, but at the moment, I don't think they're there. I mean, literally, the one we drove in Detroit, I have never been in anything that rattled as much as that vehicle did. It was a 40,000 mile Model Y. The little thing on the trunk, the tailgate, the little piece, the carbon fiber piece was coming off. I'm sorry, it wasn't. Everything about the technology and the software is as impressive as can be. Everything else about the car was less so.
that carbon fiber piece was
Yeah.
a third-party aftermarket piece.
You sure?
Yes,
I think it was too.
it was. I am 100%
Yeah.
sure it was.
Okay.
So let me ask you a couple questions, if I may. So one of the things you said is, okay, so the Tesla brand is overhyped, and that once people open up their eyes, they'll realize that there's better stuff out there. They're not as good as Tesla folks might think it is. Is that a correct way of summarizing what you just said?
In terms of the Cybertruck,
In terms of the Cybertruck?
yes.
Okay. But wouldn't you think that the company that has the #1 selling car in the world with little to no advertising will apply the same things that made it successful to the truck?
Doesn't mean that people are going to buy it.
Why not?
I don't know. I was with Mini for years, and they brought in a new head of advertising and marketing. He came up with the idea that we were no longer going to be a quirky little brand. We were going to be smart premium. And everything we said was, oh, we're smart premium. We're smart premium. And I kept saying, I don't know what the hell that means, but we're smart premium. One day I asked him at a meeting, you keep saying we're smart premium. Doesn't mean we are, just means you keep saying it. And if the public doesn't perceive it that way, guess what? We're not really smart premium. He lasted less than a year in the job because the public didn't buy it. Just because Tesla was successful without having to do mass advertising initially doesn't mean it will always be so. And just because it says Tesla doesn't always mean it's going to be successful.
So as it applies to the Cybertruck, then is your thesis that it's just a looks thing? It has nothing to do with the technology and the fact that Tesla's you barely have to maintain, and that it has the highest loyalty out of every brand, and that you barely have to go to the maintenance ever, and that it has the best charging network, and it has the best safety, and it has some of the best performance out there for the price that you buy. Like, what percentage of the population has driven an electric vehicle? It's probably like, what, 3%, 4%? And then once you get into an EV, you can see, wow, gas cars are kind of dumb in comparison. I hate to say it, especially when it comes to the affordable vehicle. So how do you reconcile those two things?
A lot of it is looks. Just because a manufacturer produces a vehicle doesn't mean it's going to be successful. The road is littered with product that manufacturers came out with that, well, it turned out the customers didn't want to buy. It's not the if we build it, they will come in every case. Yes, it has terrific technology. Yes, it has incredible software. Yes, it doesn't need nearly as much maintenance as an ICE vehicle does. But the vast majority, in my opinion, the vast majority of the buying public are going to look at that and they are not going to find it attractive enough to want to buy it, regardless of all the it's loyalty and it's the best at this and it's the best at that. It still has to be attractive enough to attract enough customers who go, yeah, A, I think it's so wonderful, I got to have it, and B, I got to spend whatever amount of money it takes to get it.
But I think
they're resting on their laurels a little bit.
So I disagree heavily. I think
Fine.
if the yeah, I know, and this is why I love this podcast.
Yeah,
this is why I
that's
love
what
you,
we're
Ray.
here for.
This is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is how it's supposed to be, America, baby.
Exactly.
Jeez, we should set a standard for everybody. My God, this is crazy. So I think if that was truly that big of a deal, how come the Toyota Corolla, which is one of the ugliest cars out there, in my opinion, does so well?
Because it's reasonably priced and it retains a high percentage of its initial value. It's dependable and it's relatively inexpensive to maintain for an ICE vehicle. And it's a great entry point for young people who are looking to get into a new vehicle. You can't sit there and say to me, well, those same people are going to think of a Cybertruck. Yeah, maybe when
Not the Corolla
60
buyer,
and they-
no.
Yeah,
No.
maybe
Yeah.
when they're 60 and they have some money. So
If they're lucky.
The Corolla buyer doesn't think of the F-150 either. And yet it's the number
Exactly.
one selling
Well,
vehicle in America.
What I'm trying to say here is using a subjective variable to say that a car will not be successful while ignoring the other benefits it has over its competition. I think that sort of framing is an injustice to how well the car is going to do because it does everything else so well. And that's
Well-
why I think it's going to be so successful.
here's the beauty of this. In a year or two,
Well, no.
and yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
I think it's an ugly truck. Putting that aside, there are obviously going to be people that are going to buy this truck. Software wise, all of that, I think it's all great. I question whether or not it's going to sell as many as they think they're going to sell. We look at what's going on in the market today with other trucks in comparable price points. People aren't buying them, right? They're sitting. So I'm just wondering if it's drastically going to change from all the reservations that they currently have. How many of them are actually going to follow through and actually purchase the truck? I'm just curious to see how this is going to play out, just based on what we currently see in the truck market.
I think that's an interesting point. Trucks are, on average, more expensive than your average car, right? Can you find an F-150 under $60,000 nowadays at a dealer lot?
you can, but the average transaction price is about 65 grand.
So then in a high interest rate environment, expensive cars are going to be impacted a lot more than other cars, right? It's not going to have this problem probably for the first year because they're not going to be able to ramp to 200,000 plus until like 2025. First 12 months, they'll probably sell like 30,000. And I bet you that there's going to be 30,000 people out there in the world that are going to pay whatever it takes to get into this truck, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about after that. I think the current truck market is more a function of high interest rates. So I think what's going to be interesting to see, and I agree with you, Phil, is I think waiting and seeing what happens once the truck reaches full ramp, which is not going to be until 2025, is going to be extremely interesting because I think by then there'll be a few things that have happened. Number one is we should have a better interest rate environment in a couple of years. If I were to guess, we're not going to have 5 to 6% interest rates from the Fed. We'll probably have less than 3. So that's going to make it a little bit easier. The Tesla brand, in my opinion, is going to be significant. It's going to permeate the United States even more because now you're going to have 2 years of full production of about 1.8 to 2.3 million units per year. You're going to have hype around the compact car. You're going to have the Cybertruck driving around the roads already. And, you know, if you watch the latest Joe Rogan podcast, The Rock was on there. And Joe Rogan asked him, did you see the Cybertruck? And The Rock is apparently living under a rock because he's like, I don't know what a Cybertruck is. And he showed him, and then Joe Rogan's going crazy about it. I completely respect where you guys are coming from saying that it's ugly. And that's beautiful. I love the fact that you guys have that opinion. But I think it's still true that a huge majority of the population have no idea that this thing even exists. And I think once it hits the roads, it's going to change that completely. And I think you're going to see a dynamic that's never been seen before in the auto market, in my opinion.
I have a question here for Megan, who says, as a former RV salesperson, the problem with electric trucks is they can't do truck stuff as well as ICE. period. What stuff can they not do?
I think she's referring to the Lightning with the
Well-
significant amount of range that is decreased when trying to tow.
Which is the same as the equivalent of MPG decrease when you tow. We'll start with it gets much less mileage than a giant tanked diesel car, of course, but that doesn't alter its capabilities. It just alters the range.
That is a pretty significant capability, right? So if you're towing in an RV and you're traveling a lot, getting that range is important.
I will agree on the range. When you tow something, your MPG gets cut in half. Your range gets cut in half on a vehicle that's
course it
already getting
does.
less range.
The
Yeah.
Silverado from Chevy does 450 miles of range and 250 while pulling a trailer. The conversation around fast recharge or fast refueling is important in this use case. But I think your point is correct, which is what percentage of the trucking public actually maximizes the feature set of a truck. I think that's the
Not a whole lot, right? It's just not.
The towing capability wise, EVs don't have any problem towing. Matter of fact, they tend to be a little bit better at towing. But range wise, you can refill a truck much faster than you recharge an EV. But the rest of the capabilities of an EV truck are as much or better than an ICE truck. I've said this many times. How many people do you know who own trucks who've never put a damn thing in the bed of their truck?
Justice, you're absolutely right. More people than not, right? Are doing that. I think it's just kind of like people are buying a truck because, in my opinion, it's almost like a status thing. Like, yeah, I got a truck, right? It's an American thing, that V8 power, big truck. I have the capability to do it. Will I use it? No, but I can certainly show it off.
Yeah, I was going to say one thing with the Cybertruck for me, I've already ordered some bumper stickers for it when I get it that says, no, I will not help you move, because that's the reason why I've never had a truck. I don't want to help you move.
You're a bumper sticker guy, huh?
No, I'm actually not. I live in California. You can't put bumper stickers out here.
I do think pickup trucks are somewhat a status symbol. Living in Austin, Texas area, boy, do I see a lot of pickup trucks that look quite fast, cool. And one of my really good friends from out here, Travis, it's actually really cool. Once I get mine, we're going to do a bunch of videos together, because he worked at an oil field for like 10 plus years. He has an F-250 freaking jacked up to the moon. What did it say? The higher the ride, the closer to God. I just absolutely love. But let me ask you this. From that status symbol angle, I think the Cybertruck is interesting, because if you look at where it's being made, it's made in America. It's made in freaking Austin, Texas, for goodness sake. The steel comes in and American workers make it, and it comes out. One could argue that it's very much a status symbol because of how unique that is. Cybertruck is built in America. It's super unique looking. It's tough. Isn't that the same kind of variable a pickup truck buyer looks today to buy a truck? And why wouldn't that help the Cybertruck as well?
In my opinion, I think it comes down to looks. If you're buying an F-250, if you're buying other trucks, it's the look, right? I think the Cybertruck is too far out there in terms of how
It's polarizing.
It's too radical.
I think yes, that is the word. Thank you. Now, I think Tesla should have maybe concurrently put out two different kinds of trucks, the Cybertruck, because it is that radical design and there are going to be people that are going to buy it. But I think they're missing the opportunity for a lot of other mainstream truck buyers that are looking for a good quality truck that they could potentially go to Tesla for. And I think that they're missing some opportunity here with just leaving it to this radical design pickup truck. And yes, it is American made. Are there going to be people that are going to be like, yeah, I'm going to buy this truck because it does have American pedigree, right? But it's just too radical, in my opinion, that I just don't think it can be compared to the trucks that are out there today.
I think of it as being somewhat polarizing. I think that there will be a number of early adopters. And in my heart of hearts, I don't think the early adopters, or even those who come afterwards, are really going to give a damn that it was built in America. I don't think that that's going to matter to them. The early adopters are going to want it because it is so radical, and there is a percentage of the population that looks at that and goes, oh, that's so radical, I have to have it. The vast majority of the population is going to look at it and go, that's too radical for me, because for the most part, we're a somewhat conservative country, and I think those looks are just going to be a little difficult for a lot of conservative people to say, yeah, I've got to have that. it won't fit their personalities. So I think the initial sales will be strong because you've got those early adopters that just they have to have it because they're an early adopter, and then it'll wane. And then you have to deal with how do we market this to the rest of them of America to get them to be interested in buying it.
They're just going to have to come out with a non-radical truck.
Look how long it took them to come out with this after they announced it.
They don't have to come out with a regular, boring looking truck because other people already do that. They don't need to do that space. There isn't someone coming out with something unique, diverse, and different. It's going to be a pavement princess just for looks to show off. I think Cybertruck is going to be a status truck. No one's going to buy a Cybertruck for work. It's just not going to happen. And nor do I think Tesla thinks that they are. This is never the plan. Tesla's not going to build work trucks. There's people out there who build those. That's not their thing. They're, as far as this end of stuff goes, they're fine with just taking that little piece of that market. And I think when people see it in person, that's also going to change a lot of perceptions because I think it's a much better looking truck in person than in pictures. And I think once people see it out there and it's driving around, I think that will change some opinions. The early adopters are what Ray said. They're the early adopters. Those of us who just love the truck, we're just going to buy it. I do agree. I think there'll be a wane in it, but Tesla is not betting its future. Elon even said, Cybertruck does not help Tesla's current position in the market with the slowdown, everything going on. It's just mainly because of interest rates. They're betting on the affordable EV, the $26,000 EV that they're going to be building over in Germany to start. That's what they're betting. The Cybertruck is going to be one of the offerings that they have for a select group of people. They're not trying to get mass adoption, I don't think. Farzad, correct me if you think I'm wrong here.
You're wrong. I think the Cybertruck, and again, this is going to sound crazy to Ray and Phil, but I think this Cybertruck has the potential to sell more than the F series globally. I really do think so. And that sounds crazy, right? Absolutely bananas.
Yes.
Just kick me out of the show right now. But the reason why I say this, and I think it's going to take a few years to play out, but in a world where battery electric vehicles become cheaper and cheaper because of the abundance of the minerals, which every single country is making an investment in, and as more and more folks transition away from gas cars and let's say into even hybrids and battery electric vehicles, which we see that trend very clearly, there's two forcing functions going on. One of them, it's going to make battery electric vehicles, EVs, cheaper, and it's going to make gas cars more expensive because you have less supply chain to rely on, which is going to naturally drive up prices to manufacture a vehicle. You're not going to have as many cars going through your factories, which is going to allow you to spread out your costs across every single one of those gas cars. So what's going to happen to the F-Series truck? It's not going to keep getting cheaper. It's going to keep getting more expensive. When is the last time you've seen a legacy automaker lower their prices, let's say outside of COVID, right? Where they had a giant spike and they came down dramatically. Every single year, legacy automakers increase their prices. Why? Because a lot of the local guys here domestically have unions, and we all know unions are going to demand more and more. It's going to make the cost of making a vehicle more and more expensive. And as you have that transition happening, you're going to have a situation in, say, 3 to 5 years where the F-150, the gas car, is going to be, let's say, 10 to 15% more expensive than it is today. And you're going to have a Cybertruck that Tesla's going to be able to manufacture at 20 to 30% less than now, because the growth of the EV segment is growing exponentially. We're just at the beginning of that industry. The gas car business for the last 100 years has already recognized all the savings it can get from a production perspective. They have nowhere else to go. I mean, the engine is maxed out. The production process is maxed out. The supply chain is maxed out. The labor agreements are maxed out. EVs are just getting started. And so from a cost perspective, I'm a person who's going to use a pickup truck for work. What do they look for? Do they look for, oh, let me put myself in a car that's ugly or pretty? Or do they say, let me see which one gives me the lowest cost per minute, right? And I think within 3 to 5 minutes, between 3 to 5 years, I think a truck like a Cybertruck is going to have a significant competitive advantage when it comes to pricing. And from that perspective, I see it being significantly more successful than I think.
The only pushback I will give you there is we have no idea how much the Cybertruck is going to be.
Yeah.
We still
right.
have
I will agree on
have
that.
no clue. Okay? Nobody knows what the price is going to be of that truck. Okay?
Yeah.
And I believe we had
2
a
weeks.
conversation a couple of weeks ago and we were guessing as to where we thought it might come in. And we thought,
Mhm.
okay, maybe 65,000, maybe 80,000. But nobody knows at this point. And if it turns out that it is significantly more expensive than a Ford F-150 average transaction price wise, I don't know why you would think that 3 to 5 years from now that suddenly it's going to come down and it'll
Yeah.
be significantly less expensive than a comparable ICE vehicle. Yes, ICE vehicles, they keep raising the damn prices of them. Yeah, inflation, part of it. Part
Mhm.
of it's just greed, and the other part of it is, well, they need the profits from the ICE division to underwrite what they're trying to do in the EV division. I get all that. We can't even begin to guess what the success is going to look like until we know what the damn thing's going to cost.
That's
I
a fair
agree.
point.
I agree.
Yeah.
But let me frame it around this. My assumption is that they're going to have the truck somewhere around the 65 to 70 and an upper trim closer to 80 so that they can take advantage of that tax credit, right? Which
Yes.
is what Ford is doing, which is Chevy's doing. So if Tesla comes in around that 65 range for, say, an entry level truck, does your tune change?
No, and I'll tell you why. Based on what I have seen, for those who actually use a pickup truck for the utility of it, I don't think that the shape and design of the Cybertruck allows itself to be a true utility type vehicle. I don't know. We'll just all have to wait and see. And my hope is that 2 years from now, when we have this conversation again about it, and either you're right or I'm right, or we're somewhere in between, I want to be here to have that conversation. I mean, I
Yeah.
am notorious for not being able to make correct predictions, but then the truth of the matter is predicting the future is virtually impossible.
It's very difficult. It's
Yeah.
almost impossible. Yeah. I will
Yeah.
say that if you're right, I will wear one of your sick button down shirts that you like to wear. And you and I can be button down brothers. I
Well,
mean, your fashion game, Ray, it's so good. I'm not even saying that jokingly. I'm like legitimately.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I
Impressed.
appreciate that. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think I'm a pretty hip 72-year-old the way I dress. But the good thing is, for most people, you only basically see me from mid chest up. The rest of me looks like hell.
Oh my God. Let me make one point before I throw it back to whoever wants to take this. Could you imagine 10 years ago having a conversation about a startup company having a legitimate effort into the pickup truck market with a pure electric vehicle? Do you think that would have been a possibility 10 years ago?
If you're asking me, I would say I never gave it a thought.
Right. I think
I
this
would
really,
agree with that as well.
yeah. And I think that really speaks to just how far this has gotten. And we're just at the beginning. And I think that's the overarching premise as to why I feel so confident about the success of this product.
Phil, if they come in at 65,000, do you think that changes your opinion on how well the truck is going to do?
No. So putting aside the looks of the car or the truck, I'm looking at what the market is currently on this. And even at that price point, the market is still struggling to sell even at that price point. I'm not trying to poo all over the Cybertruck and say like it's not going to overall do well. I'm trying to say like in the market today, in when it's coming out, I think it's going to be a struggle because they can't afford to buy these things. And yeah, there are going to be early adopters that are well off and are going to pick these things up. I get that. But I think for the mainstream public that are looking to buy a new truck, I'm telling you, they're not going to be looking for the Cybertruck for their next truck. I don't see it.
Well, and I will say something Farzad will probably disagree with me on. I agree. I don't think this is a truck buyer's truck. This is an EV buyer's truck. So I will agree with Ray and Phil in that this isn't the F-250, maybe the F-150 buyer, but not the F-250, F-350 buyer's truck. None of those work people who make money with their trucks are going to be out there buying this vehicle. So I see them selling better than the F-150. I think they have a lot of advantages for people who want a truck without needing a truck.
I agree. We talked about people who buy trucks for the exception use case and never do it, right? Like I want to make sure I can haul something for 500 miles just in case I need it, which is a very American thing. It's like I need to make sure I have all my bases covered. That buyer will not even, probably won't even know that this thing even exists, right? But again, my whole point goes back to what percentage of the buying public that is actually agnostic when it comes to looks and these things, and they just want the thing that will make them happiest for the amount of money that they use to get that thing. I think that's where this product will do extremely well. And if you look at a lot of different studies around EV demand, there is a market there. There is 100% a market there. And it's not your traditional buying market. Because when we think about pickup trucks, we have a very stereotypical sort of mindset of who's going to buy these insane pickup trucks, or these pickup trucks that, again, are built for the specific use case. But I think generally the buying public, in my opinion, wants the thing that will make them happiest for the amount of money that they spend monthly, right? And if something fits that equation really well, I think the Cybertruck will become a consideration. And yeah, it will alienate some buyers. Where Ray and Phil might say that this thing is ugly, I take the opposite stance. And I've seen it in person like 3 times. I'm like, this thing is freaking sick. It is sick, you guys. I'm very curious to see, once you do see it in person, I would love to see your reaction. I almost want you guys to record yourselves in front of it. And be like, look at how ugly this thing is.
I will tell you right now, Ray is still going to think it's ugly. But Phil might come around. But Ray is still going to think
I don't
it's
know.
ugly.
I can't wait.
I don't know.
No, if I see one, hopefully it's parked. I swear I will take a selfie with the truck. Here's a question, though. It's a serious question. If one were to reserve today for $100, when would that person realistically expect to be able to take delivery of that truck?
There's multiple factors. So I 100% agree with that, Igor.
Yeah,
like 1,000%. I
actually
think that
do
is
agree with that,
dramatically
yeah.
underappreciated.
That will happen.
That's the real marketing that Tesla doesn't have to pay for.
Yeah. So Elon Musk openly said on the latest quarterly call that they have at least 1 million reservations. And there's a tracker out there that says somewhere between 1.5 to 2 million. So let's just assume they have about 1 million. But then let's even assume 50% of those people don't take reservations, right? Let's say it goes down to 500,000.
Yeah.
If their peak ramp, which they've openly said is going to be around 200 to 250,000 units per year, and they're not going to reach it until 2025, then in theory, by the end of 2025, they probably would have shipped about 200,000 at maximum. And then the next year, they would have shipped another 200,000. That's 400,000. That's 2026. So like 2027, 2028, if that framing is correct.
And I think your math there is probably pretty accurate. So why the hell do I want to give them $100 today?
Yeah.
I mean, what's
100%.
the point? And the truth of the matter is, if all it takes is $100 to reserve one, well, you don't have to be a serious buyer to do it.
100%.
I agree with that.
But even if half those buyers were to say no, there's
No, I
still
get
a
it.
4-year-long wait list.
Exactly.
It's a
And if
4-year-long wait list because you got these people putting down $100 for something they're never going to buy.
But if half of them go away, it's still 4 years long.
Yeah.
If half of them didn't go away, it would be like a 6-year-long wait list, if not longer.
You know what would really be interesting? To have an actuarial look at it and say, oh, and by the way, this percentage of those people who left a deposit are going to die between now and the time. But maybe if the timing's right, that person could get buried in it. Just a thought.
It'll be the most
cyber
solid
coffin.
coffin they'll ever have.
Yeah, cyber coffin.
Bulletproof coffin.
Oh, Lord.
I do agree that the $100 deposit changed the percentage of people who are going to go through with their deal versus those who don't. There's a lot of people who are just like, it's $100, whatever.
Right.
I
would have loved to
can
see
walk
if
away
it was like
from
$1,000 and see how different those orders
Yeah,
would have
I agree. If it was a $2,500 deposit, first off, people wouldn't wait 4 years, though, if they put a $2,500 deposit down. So there would be a lot more.
I don't know if they really want this Cybertruck.
I don't
I
think
think they would wait, Justice. I think that they would.
I mean, $100 to a lot of people is a lot of freaking money, y'all. $100 is not nothing,
If
right?
Farzad, can I
yeah.
just throw one thing out real quick?
Of course.
If $100 is a lot to put out, you have no business buying a $100,000 truck.
Yeah, for 100%. But how many people buy cars that are way above what they should buy?
I mean, I get that, but if you can't afford to put that down on an $80, $90, $100,000 truck, I'm sorry. I mean,
Yeah, no,
it just
100%.
means you're not buying it. It just means you're not buying it. If you can't afford that.
And the other thing we also have to keep in mind is that $100 reservation came out initially when it was 2019. It was 4 years ago. It was before COVID, and the starting prices for the Cybertruck was $39, $49, and $69.
Yep.
Right. So that's the other thing we have to keep in mind. And that's why I'm also very optimistic about the pricing, because I think that pricing is going to be relatively similar, but you're going to have inflation and the COVID impact, which is probably going to raise it by at least 20%.
So if it was today and looking to put reservations on an $80,000 truck, it would be so different today, Farzad, with the reservations. I think it would be night and day from what it was then versus now on this truck. I would probably even say they would probably get 25% of what they actually did.
Okay. So 250,000 reservations.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me throw a number out there. So Model 3, the max reservations at $1,000 was 500,000 units. And now the run rate for the Model 3 is 500,000 units per year.
I can't compare the Model 3 to the Cybertruck. The Cybertruck is too much of a niche look. It's still, as we've talked about here, it's a radical product. Most people are not going to put that in their garages.
Said about EVs when the Model 3 was rolling out.
I get that, but it's here. I'm going to go back to the design of it and the use case of what the truck is.
I do have a question. I keep hearing about how there is going to be a $25,000, $26,000 small car, electric car from Tesla that nobody's seen, that they're not even prepared to build yet. Is that going to be the same situation for that vehicle that we're going to be told today or whenever? Oh, it's going to be about a $25,000 car. And then 5 years from now, when they finally decide that they're going to come out with it, that $25,000 car is a $50,000. I mean, are they really going to have the ability to produce a $25,000 car when they couldn't produce that $39,000 pickup truck?
But history shows, like, we have data that proves that they can. So Model 3 initially was unveiled in 2015, I think, or 2016, for a starting price of $35,000. Okay. Right now, you can go on Tesla's website. You can buy it for $38,000. It's only $3,000 more, but we've had how many years of inflation? And it has a longer range.
But let me ask you a question. That price of $38,000 is that price today. But what was it, I don't know, 18 months ago? It was much higher than that, was it not?
Because of COVID. Every single automaker's price was higher.
My point is, it was much higher than that. I don't care what you want to blame it on. It was much higher than that. And then, I don't know, there became more competition. So Tesla decided that they needed to lower prices so that they could maintain market share. That's why the price came down. It didn't come down because suddenly they could build it more affordably. Price was artificially high to begin with.
Why? Why was it artificially high?
Because they figured they could get it.
Because of demand. Because of demand.
Yeah.
Right?
But
because there was demand for it. And if they wouldn't have increased those prices the way they did, then they would have a 3-year-long wait list for the Model 3, right? At that time. Because there was this giant demand for the vehicle. So it was a function of demand. They had to increase the price. Now that they're back down to that $38,000 price, again, 8 years after their initial pricing of $35,000 and being able to set aside inflation and being able to reduce their costs through economies of scale, they're able to offer that car for that price for more range, right? Before the EV tax credit, 8 years after they announced that price. And they're still profitable.
Are you suggesting then that 8 years after the Cybertruck was first announced, and it was announced at a $39,000 price point that we know it's not going to come out at, that 8 years from, so in 2027, it might be like a $42,000 truck?
Correct. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, without of a doubt.
I ain't buying that for a second.
Book it. 4 years from now. Let's do this. Clip this right now.
If you want me to be here 4 years from now, goddamn it, I'm going to have to change my diet. I'm going to have to start exercising.
You better start, Ray. You better start. You better start. I'm not letting you off the hook, Ray.
I just want to comment to 2 comments here. We have Stuart says, same thing I say all the time. Car Edge, all the cars look exactly the same. Also, Car Edge, Cybertruck looks ugly because it's too different. That is what we do. And then Susanna here, but all other EVs look normal. No, that is absolutely not true. When the Tesla first came out, there were all kinds of, it's ugly, it's hideous, it's nobody's going to want to buy that car. And it wasn't as radical as the Cybertruck. But those were the comments when Tesla first came out. I heard them all the time. And now it's, oh, they're boring. This Tesla is boring. And I said, it's amazing how fast Tesla went from, oh, that's an ugly EV. No one's going to want to buy that too. Oh, that looks so boring.
I remember articles that were saying that the Model 3 not having a grille would kill the company because it didn't look like a regular car. It was too radical that it didn't have a grille. I remember that. And lo and behold, Model Y is the best selling car in the world.
They're boring. They all look the same. It's
going to be so fun.
That's called selective memory. That's called selective memory.
Before you sign us off, I just want to really give you guys so much props. I love these conversations. I think this is such a healthy way of discussing any topic. And I just want to thank you, gentlemen, so much for inviting me on. This is truly an honor. Thank you.